All right, guys. So this is Mr. Lynch.
Mr. Anderson.
We're doing a little test review of World War II for you guys to help you with your test and to catch you up on the things that you did when we were there and the things that you're kind of learning from home now. Um, so we've just got the review sheet up for you, and we're just going to talk about some of the topics on the test. And if you pay attention to the video, you should be able to get everything right. So, first off, historical circumstances of World War II, of the US entering World War II. Remember, the war started in 1939, but we did not enter the war until 1941. From 1939 to 1941, the United States was still going through the Great Depression. FDR, the President of the United States, still his point of view was that we should get involved in World War II. So he began lending and supplying the Allies with goods and weapons to help them in the war effort against the Axis powers, which were Hitler, Mussolini, um, and Japan. That was our involvement in the war before we got involved. That should help you with questions 3 through 7 on your test. You want to do the
Yeah,
next part?
one little thing to add to that. So on the review sheet, look at number 4, Arsenal of Democracy. We didn't get a chance to cover that in class. So think of arsenal is just a stockade of weapons. So before the United States actually becomes involved in the war, that term Arsenal of Democracy gets thrown around by FDR in terms of the United States supplying, so think Lend-Lease, supplying the Allies with those weapons and things like that so that we can protect democracy around the world. All right. So second part, this actually will help you with the first couple questions of the test is a day that will live in infamy speech. So Pearl Harbor's bombed December 7th, 1941. The next day, FDR is giving a speech in front of Congress. Remember, checks and balances, right? That the president needs permission to go to war. Congress has to declare war. The president cannot do that. So FDR gives a speech. He says that that day is a day that will live in infamy. So think it's really good to be famous. It's not very good to be infamous, right? So it's a terrible, terrible day. Something that's going to be looked on and remembered forever as being one of the worst days in American history. But he is asking Congress to declare war on Japan. And after that speech, so the purpose of that speech, again, Congress is going to declare war. The United States will get involved in the Pacific, declaring war on Japan. 3 days later, December 11th, Hitler and Mussolini both declare war on the United States. That's how we get involved in Europe.
So a major effect of Pearl Harbor is the United States officially enters World War II. Um, so when we talk about U.S. history and World War II, we talk about the home front a lot. You guys are probably going to get used to seeing, and you've seen on your test already, propaganda posters. A lot of the purpose of these posters was to convince people in the United States at home to ration their supplies. And the reason they want to ration their supplies is to make sure that the materials can go away to the troops and to the allies abroad. Um, so conservation of materials at home. Okay. Um, One of the big effects of this, there's actually two big effects of this on the United States. Number one, it's going to help to solve the problems of the Great Depression. Okay, this is going to put Americans back to work. Women increased their workload. Women in the workforce. Okay, it's like the Rosie the Riveter on the cover page of your packets.
Right.
Women enter the war as factory workers. Okay, and on top of that, unemployment's going to go way down in the United States. So people get back to work, unemployment starts to get better, fixes some of the problems that we were going through during the Great Depression. There's like questions 11 to 13, 14 and 15 on your test all have propaganda posters, and you should be able to talk about women entering the workforce, rationing at home, unemployment going down, and soothing the effects of the Great Depression.
So next thing, and I've seen some students that have already turned in the test struggling with this. So questions 16, 17, 18, 19 are about Japanese internment camps. So think back throughout the year, we talked about Lincoln suspending the writ of habeas corpus during the Civil War. We talked about that the government can limit people's rights. Shank versus the United States, that case during World War I, that's limited freedom of speech. So we have another court case. It's number 3 on your review sheet right there, Korematsu versus the United States. This is big. This is a Regents topic too.
Bigly,
So
huge.
hugely. R with a circle around it if you guys are into that thing. This is a big deal. So what happens is a lot of Japanese immigrants. So think we talked about immigrants coming over from Europe a lot. Vice versa on the Pacific coast, there's immigrants coming in from Japan. So states like California, Oregon, Washington. There's a lot of Japanese Americans after Japan bombs Pearl Harbor. It's America, guys. I say blame white people for everything, right? Racism, discrimination starts against Japanese immigrants. They think that they might be spies. They think they might be working for the Japanese. So what does the government do? FDR passes an executive order, best question, to move Japanese Americans from their homes into internment camps. So think basically college campuses set up where they just throw fences around a football field, put up some houses and things like that, and you bring in what you can carry. That's where you stay. So Korematsu, he's going to sue the U.S. government, saying that as a citizen, that his First Amendment rights are being violated, that the United States, by putting the Japanese in internment camps, is kind of being hypocritical because they're preaching that democracy and freedom should be protected everywhere, but they're not protecting their own citizens. So the case goes to the Supreme Court, and you can see right here some of the different effects that case is going to have. Discrimination. They move to the internment camps, and the court rules, believe it or not, or I should say believe it because it's a trend, right, that during times of war, people's rights can be limited. So Korematsu and other Japanese Americans are forced to go back to the concentration camps and remain in those internment camps, pardon me, through the duration of the war.
Cool. So what's going to be one of the big problems that we're going to see in the United States is people are going to be prejudiced against the Japanese. You're going to see all that internment going on. Now, because the Japanese dropped bombs on Pearl Harbor, a lot of Americans are going to want revenge on Japan. Okay, so we have the D-Day invasion where the British and the Canadians and the Americans land on the shores of France and they start to liberate France from the Axis powers and freedom from Germany. Okay, and we're going to start getting Hitler out of the war. Germany gets knocked out of the war, but we still have to defeat Japan. You guys know that big weapon that they've got stocked up, ready to go. They've been researching during the war. That's the dropping of the atomic bomb. Okay, Americans are going to have the atomic bomb. They're going to drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Okay, and this is a big discussion in the world because you blow up. There's hundreds of thousands of people killed in Japan from the dropping of the bomb. Okay, that's just one thing that you guys have to be able to identify. And the justification, the reason for this from the United States point of view was that we needed to end the war as quickly as possible. We didn't want to continue to waste American lives fighting the Japanese when we could drop these bombs and end the war right away. Some people estimated there could be up to 1 million American casualties if we had to invade Japan, or we could just drop these bombs, poof, and wipe out Japan that way. And that's one of the big discussions that you'll see about the bombs. Okay.
With that too, just kind of providing some more historical context, if you will, for the bombs in Japan. So Global One review. Japan is an archipelago. A lot of that region in the Pacific Ocean is islands. So the U.S. plan was what they called island hopping. So they were going from island to island. It took a lot of time. The Japanese were putting up resistance, fighting till the last man. They refused to surrender. So that was another piece I went into.
Kamikazes.
They were training old ladies with broomsticks, and I'm not joking, to fight against the United States if the U.S. invaded. So that's the U.S. point of view. Let's drop these bombs, kind of scare the Japanese into surrendering, because when that bomb hits, people are vaporized, literally vaporized. They disappear. So it was something that was pretty crazy, nobody'd ever seen before.
Cool. So a couple last things you have to know for your test. Okay, there's a poem from Langston Hughes on there that discusses, remember, again, giving historical circumstances going back after World War I, there was the Great Migration. African Americans moved from the South to northern cities, and an effect of that was cultural diffusion. Okay, there's still a lot of racism, and there is, Regent's term, segregation in the United States between African Americans and white people. The Army was segregated at this time. So when you look at questions 23 and 24 in your test, the Army was segregated. Okay, Langston Hughes puts out these poems that discuss this topic, and he's speaking out against it. One of the effects of this is that there's going to be the desegregation of the Army. Okay, so then African Americans are going to be able to fight alongside with white soldiers.
One of our last lessons in class was reviewing the 4 freedoms speech by FDR. That's what Hughes is responding to. He's saying, hey guys, these 4 freedoms that you're talking about, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom from want, freedom from fear, that all sounds great, but what about us? Because African Americans were living in the United States and they didn't experience those same freedoms. So Hughes is kind of writing these poems to kind of call out the government, saying, hey, FDR, you're great that you want to help these other people, but what about us?
So World War II is going to end in 1945. We dropped two bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan surrenders, and the Allied powers win the war. Okay, but you do know what was going on in Germany at this time. Hitler had Jewish people in concentration camps like Auschwitz. There was all the medical experiments on them. They were living in terrible, horrible, inhumane conditions, human rights violations for your global two terms. Okay, one of the effects of the Holocaust from World War II is going to be the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's going to be something that's really pushed by Eleanor Roosevelt, who was FDR's wife. And the main goal is just going to be to guarantee that people across the world should be entitled to certain rights. So you're protected from things like slavery. Okay, that's one of the last couple of questions on your test, and there are readings that you should be able to support your answers with anyway. But just so you guys have a little bit of instruction on that, that's an effect of the Holocaust. Is people look back and go, "This should never happen again. We need to prevent human rights violations."
Questions before that, to 25 and 26, are also about the Holocaust. There's a document, there's reports that FDR knew about the Holocaust earlier and did not respond to it. So there's basically a question that the author's point of view is, hey, FDR knew about this Holocaust. He knew these terrible things were happening. Millions of Jews are dying in concentration camps. Like, what the heck, man? Why are you not doing anything to help? So his point of view is that he could have done more, that he knew about the Holocaust ahead of time. They could have intervened sooner. So that's what you're looking at in those two questions. All right. One last thing before we end our video, not relating to the review sheet. Take your time. We gave you time purposely for these assessments. You know, they're not due tomorrow, right? Even your test is not due till next week, right? We want you to look through your packet, look through the notes in the files tab. We want you to check to make sure you know what you're doing before you take the test. Don't just rush it to get it done. Same thing goes after the test when you're working on those reviews. You know, take your time. It's more important if we come back to school and you know we got a readings exam coming up. You need to know this stuff. So it's better to take a little bit of time a day to try to look over, even if it's 20 minutes, then take that test.
And if
Right?
you have a question, you could stop your work. It'll save what you've done. You could Teams us, you could email us, ask us a question. We have office hours posted, and honestly, we're going to be answering Teams throughout the day, a lot of days anyway. So shoot us text, let us know what you need, and we'll be happy to help you guys. But take your time, and we'll give you all the help and instruction that you need. There'll be more videos to come. We're going to post a discussion video about the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki for you guys with a little video clip. Okay, so stay safe. Good luck.
Yourselves, shave your beards.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do.